35% whole cluster stems, so about a third stems. Fermentations, these 1,000-gallon tanks here, about 14 days.
Cold soak?
Yeah, about through 2 or 3 days of a cold. Not much.
When you bring it, you hit it with a little bit of sulfur, or you just no sulfur?
I SO2 the must.
Right.
Yeah, I do. I SO2 at the crusher. I add about 35 parts of SO2.
Pump over punch downs?
Punch down with that punch down tool. That little tool over there, hanging on the wall, with a little foot on it. That's a punch down tool.
Oh yeah, that'll give you a nice workout.
Yeah, yeah, good for the
exercise.
back. Good for the back.
It's real winemaking.
Barrel aged for only about 11 months.
Do you leave on the lees?
No filtration, no fining.
Leave it on the lees? You rack it at all, or?
You know, in this vintage, I left it on the lees the entire time. But currently, the last couple of years, I've been doing a rack around May.
So, okay.
Because when you bottle unfiltered,
right,
and you're going out of that barrel with about anywhere, because when you barrel down with a natural fermentation, you can have a barrel that has 1 gallon of lees. Or a barrel that has 3.
Take your choice.
And I just feel more comfortable now in terms of clarity, doing a rack. So the majority of the time of aging is on lees.
You stir it all, or
not the entire time.
You stir them, or just let them sit there?
Yeah.
Let them sit there.
Pretty much just barrel it, top it, keep the SO2s in check, and that's it. Come out of barrel into a tank down at the cave and bottle. That's it.
Now you say you sulfur the must, but you use natural yeast. How does that work out? I mean, how do the yeasts get in there? Do you do anything to
If you don't
help
sulfur
them?
the must, you can have problems down the road.
Right.
With certain infections, you might say, Britannomyces being one, Lactobacillus, Pediococcus being 2 others. Those, all 3 of those species of natural yeast, airborne, are SO2 sensitive.
Okay.
So if you start with SO2'd must, you're taking those populations way down.
Okay.
Way down.
But that you use so little sulfur that it doesn't affect the natural yeast. So what?
Well, the so-called good yeasts,
right.
are not as SO2 intolerant. Right. They've kind of their biochemistry is such that they don't get killed or as much. And also, I'm doing a cold soak.
Right.
So I don't want the wine to ferment right away. And my experience making Pinot Noir is it ferments, once it starts fermenting, it wants to ferment really, really fast, like overnight. So by not adding yeast, I'm having the bell curve I want, of fermentation.
Right.
And it's just easier. It's easier to kind of hold it back, because it'll ferment. You'll go to bed. It's 21 bricks. Everything's fine. We wake up in the morning. It's 5 bricks. Seriously.
Whoa.
It's 5 bricks, and the temperature is like at the yeast are like I'm dying, and then you got problems. So.
You haven't rigged up like a thermometer to an alarm clock or anything yet?
No.
Good idea, though.
No, we're kind of primitive up here.
I remember when we first tried whole clusters, and we did 100% whole clusters as we did a lot of experimenting. And talk about green tannin. Holy mackerel. And so we decided that was wrong, wondered why. And Joe Swan told us in France, their clusters, they use a lot of whole clusters or many percentages of that, but the vines themselves, the insides of the clusters are drier, so they tend not green, but they end up being more brownish and stuff.
Yeah.
So why in France are the clusters, the internals, more dry than ours? How's that?
Well, the weather is different. The weather is much colder and wetter, and the grapes here ripen so much faster than they do there. Weeks longer. So that longer hang time creates a cluster or a rachis in the stem that's more mature, more woody, more lignified. The clusters, the rachis here is green, herbaceous, stemmy.
Yes.
You chew it, stemmy. The rachis there is less so. It still has a little bit, but it's less so because it's the weather is so much cooler. The harvest is later. The weather is just it's not as sunny and hot as it is here.
So yet another good reason for hang time.
Well, the weather drives it though, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Can't wait forever.
You can't
You need a cooler.
you do with what you have, but it's still a good thing when you can get it.
In
Yeah.
California, using all stems is unusual today, you know.
You need
It
a cool,
exists, but it's unusual.
You need a cool, long growing season.
Sure.
But
We
yeah,
actually
some
we
people do
actually
it.
have a longer growing season here than they
In
do
our
there.
But not at the end. The end is hotter. The end is earlier and hotter here.
It depends when
Bud
and
break
where.
is earlier.